So what should we expect from the runner-up to the Beijing Winter Olympics? From the run-up, I should say. Let's bring in Mike Bako for his take. He's sports editor for dailynational.com. Mike, always good to see you. And I want to talk about some of those numbers. This is a big deal for China to host Winter Games. It's always been incredibly competitive in summer games, but it's really had to up its game to host and compete in some of these colder sports.
They basically had to start from ground zero. They had to build the infrastructure to participate in these games. They had to build the infrastructure to train for the games. They had to build the infrastructure to have fans actually understand what the games are. You're talking about regions of a country where they had never ice skated before. They had never seen someone skiing or jumping off of a ski jump. Hockey, speed skating, figure skating, so many of these sports had to be taught to the public, and then in turn finding the participants to participate in these games. You're talking about a Winter Olympic team trying to grow from, say, a couple of hundred participants to a couple of thousand who are trying to qualify, and then ultimately a couple of hundred that make the team and form the delegation. So this is really something that sprouted up from very little, now growing, as you mentioned, not only in the dollars and cents, but also in the participants, and they're hoping in the results.
And I remember a few years ago seeing Chinese ice hockey players training, learning in Canada, so getting the lessons where they should. China issued the Ice and Snow Sports Development Program 5 years ago, and it highlighted priority sectors for investment. So winter sports infrastructure, snow equipment manufacturing, winter sports education. There's always money around Olympic Games, but this is a lot of money. Will it be worth the investment?
Well, what they're looking to do is not only be successful in the Winter Olympic Games, but also grow this beyond, talking about from a tourist perspective, talking about growing this industry. What they're hoping to do is beyond the Olympics is to grow this industry into a $150 billion winter sports and tourism industry. So it is the investment in 2022 in terms of growing the popularity and the participation, and hopefully success, but they're looking long term. They're looking at building schools to have these younger Chinese students train to not only participate in the games, but also to grow their love of the sport. So ski resorts being built, hockey arenas being built, 600 hockey arenas. There were only about 200 as recently as 4 years ago. So this is everything that they're pouring in to be a success in the Olympic Games, but also to grow from a financial standpoint.
And no doubt millions of Chinese will be watching these. We saw what COVID did to the Summer Games in Tokyo. What impact is it likely having on the Beijing Games, if any?
Well, it's interesting if you look at polls in terms of just the popularity of hosting the actual games. In Tokyo, there were editorials written by the most popular newspapers and polls saying that 75% of residents did not want the games. And you transpose that to the fervor that is surrounding the 2022 games in terms of China wanting to showcase their country, wanting to showcase everything that they've poured into the training and the infrastructure. So the lessons that they've learned is, well, one, from a COVID safety standpoint, but also the lessons in terms of what not to do and how to grow the popularity internally of hosting the games.
Mike, we saw how the Beijing Summer Games in 2008 really changed the Chinese capital, just the sheer investment there. Do you expect these Winter Games to leave a similar lasting impact?
I think it's a little bit harder from a winter sport perspective, just because you have these big, huge infrastructural investments that you have to do, and not many people are able to take advantage of them as much as when they were building internally in the cities. So what you're hoping for is that these venues don't get what we call the white elephants, where they just become built for the games and then not used after. I think with what we've been talking about in terms of so much being poured into growing the actual participation in the sports, one of the plans that the Olympic Committee and the Tourism Committee has is to turn these venues, the Olympic style venues, into potentially being used by the public. So that's really going to be the outgrowth of this, is how popular these sports still remain and how many people are actually able to take advantage of those facilities.